Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So in this video series we are going to build a to-do list where you can add your items, okay, and remove them. And we are going to do all of this with vanilla JavaScript using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I'm going to show you everything that you need to do to have this nice and simple web application. Okay, so where I can add, let's say, programming, okay, like this. So if I do this and I add the task, okay, you see that I have it here in my list. And I can add like gym, okay, and more. And I can, like, when I remove it, okay, when I click this icon, like, it removes the task. All right, so this is what we are going to do in this video series. So I'm going to do it like from scratch, all right, so that you can understand everything about DOM manipulation, okay, manipulating DOM elements and using JavaScript. Okay, so with that said, let's get started. I'm going to open a new folder. Okay, so you can simply open a new folder from your documents folder or from your desktop, and then open that folder, okay, with VS Code. So this is an empty folder, right? So this is like an empty folder that I called to-do list YT for YouTube, but you can simply call it to-do list, all right? And inside this, I'm going to have like the three files. Okay, I'm going to have the index file HTML, okay, and then I'm going to have the styles.css. I'm going to have the index.js. So the index.js is the JavaScript file, right? So I'm going to use Emmet, okay, that helps me have the scaffold, okay, for your document structure. So with that, bang, I can have like the scaffold, okay, and I'm going to change the title with to-do list, like that, with to-do list, okay, and that's it. Now I want you to download an extension. I call it live server, right? So I call it live server. So this is like the extension you need to launch the application, okay, from VS Code, right? So once you download it, you can now like simply right click on this index file in HTML, and then you can open like the live server, right? So now like it simply opens the live server, okay, and you can have your application, okay, live here. Okay, so what I need now is to use the containers, which are like divs. A div is simply a container, and inside this container you can have other containers, or you can choose to have, okay, paragraphs or titles, right? So I'm going to have a container, a div, okay, with a class of container. So I could do this, okay, I could simply code it like the hard way and use a class of like container like this, okay, but what I want to do here is to use Emmet, okay, because Emmet is like very fast, right, for programmers. So I can simply use a dot and write container and then tab, okay. When I do this, like, it gives me a div with a class of container, all right? So it's faster than simply typing it the hard way with hard code. You can use shortcuts with Emmet, all right? So like this is a container for our whole application, and this container I want it to have a div, a special div for the form, okay, so where you will have the buttons and the input and the title, okay, like this one. All right, so I have like here the title, and I have here the form, all right, where I have like add task here, and the input and the button. So this is a container, but inside this container I have a form container, and right under this form container I'll have the tasks container. All right, so this is where I will have the task whenever I type something, okay, here. So this is another container. All right, so we have two containers inside one container. So the first one, let's call it form container, okay, and I'm still using emmet, right? And the second container, let's say tasks, like this, tasks container. All right, so these two containers will hold the application content. So inside this container, what I want to do is to create a h1 tag and call it, okay, to do list. Right, very simple. And inside this form container, you can have a form. All right, so you can have a form, or you can simply have input, but I will simply use a form, right, to make things simpler. Right, so because I want to have a required input, so that you cannot add an empty task. All right, so inside this form I'll add an input of text. Okay, so this is like what I will have for our input. So we can simply say task input, whatever, okay, and id task input, like that. And we need to have here a label. Okay, so this is like there's a label for the form, so it should have the for here is an attribute for the id. All right, so it should be the same for id, and then inside, in between the label tags, you can have whatever you want here. So let's say add task. Okay, so this is the label for the form, and the live server like is simply, okay, updating everything. All right, so you have like the title here, and you have the input, and you have the label. All right, so now I want to add a button. Okay, so this button will have a type of submit. All right, so it has a type of submit. Okay, and submit, or I'll say add task. All right, so the submit type, like this type of submit will submit. Okay, we'll submit it, but it's like a form. So the form by default, it will submit, it will send the information. Okay, it's like a post. So if I write something here, let's say ml, okay, you see that the page is refreshing, and it sends that information, but we don't want to send anything here. So we are going to deal with that using JavaScript. All right, don't worry about that. But this first video is just for the content. Okay, and this task container, it doesn't have anything yet. All right, so we don't need to put anything here. Okay, so now we have like our structure for the HTML, and we can style now our content. All right, so using style.css, we can add styling to our index file. But first we need to link our style sheet, okay, to the index file, and we also need to link our JavaScript file to the index file. So we can use emmet as well, which is script. Okay, use script src attribute should point to the index file, and that's it. Now we want to test. Okay, we can test that our index file is connected. We can simply write an alert function and then say connected. Okay, so this means that our index.js file is connected. All right, so now let's delete our alert function, and now we can style our our body. Okay, so we can style our body. So if you notice, the background here is it has this this nice, okay, gradient. Okay, so you can do this using the gradient in CSS and adding a background color. So you can say body, okay, and then you add a background color. Okay, you can say simply background and then gradient, right? Linear gradient, I mean linear gradient. So like this linear gradient, you can have the orientation from the top to bottom or from the left to the right. Okay, but we are going to use a default, which is from the left to the right, no, which is from the top to the bottom. And I'm going to use the two colors. Okay, so we can use Chrome DevTools here and inspect our body. Okay, so we have like this linear gradient here, so we can simply copy it. Okay, can copy this one and paste it here. Okay, actually should be background, and yeah, now we should have like for our body with a live server, you see. But you see like it's having a pattern, like you see it like this small pattern that repeating itself. So we don't want that. We can use background repeat and then simply say no repeat. Okay, and it doesn't repeat now. And we can say the body, we need to extend this body's height. We can give it a height of 100 view height, all right, so that it takes 100% of this this window. All right, so now we have like the styling for our body. And if you notice, we have here this form, which is perfectly centered, okay, like vertically and horizontally. So what you want to do is to to use a flex display. So I'm using the flex display, which is a very easy way to style an element's children, or like what is inside the body. I can use a flex display to style it as a place it as horizontally, center it, or center it vertically. So I want to use the flex display here, and then use, okay, justify content, which aligns it, okay, horizontally. All right, so if I use center, you see that now it is aligned center. Okay, but we need to do it as well vertically. So in the y-axis, I can use the aligned items, which is a way of centering it vertically. And you see now that this form is centered, okay, vertically and horizontally. All right, now like this is taking form. So what we need to do is to give this container a background, a white background, and we give it a height and a width as well. To do this, we target this form container. Okay, now we target this container itself. I think like it is this container itself. So this to-do list should be outside actually. All right, so now it should be okay. It should be outside this form container. So let's say it should be, let's place it inside and we'll see. Okay, and now like we give this form container, we can give it a background. All right, we can give it a background. Let's see if we give this container a background color of white. Okay, and now we can give it let's say we can give it a height of 300 pixels and a width of 300 pixels as well. Okay, and we can actually we can make it bigger and wider. Okay, like this. All right, and we can give it a border radius of, let's say, 5 pixels. Okay, to have like these nice corners. All right, and yeah, now I think this to-do list should be outside. Okay, so it should be outside of this container. So if I put it outside, like the flex display is making these two, okay, being aligned horizontally. So what I want to do is to change the disposition of this flex display. All right, so you can do this using the flex direction, which is by default, which is row. Okay, so it's aligning everything like as a row, but I wanted to align it as a column. So if I use this flex direction column, it should do the job. All right, now you see it like everything is aligned as a column. All right, so now we can simply style our H1 and give it a background color of white. Okay, and we can give it a width of, let's say, 500 pixels. All right, and a text align of center to align everything. All right, now actually can be 350 like the container. Okay, we can even give it a border radius of, let's say, 5 pixels. Okay, so it depends on your what you want here. Okay, and now we have like this nice background. Now you see that, okay, this form container, we haven't styled it yet, but let's do it now. We can do form container, okay, and give it a display of flex as well. All right, and the flex direction as a column, because like now it's like flex display, but it's a row, right? We want to do it as a column. And okay, I want to target the form actually like this. Okay, so the form inside the form container, and then okay, we can say width of the form. It can be, let's say, 200 pixels. Okay, so the form container as well, we have to display it as a flex, and align everything center. So you can say justify content center and align items center as well. Okay, all right, so now we have this aligned like vertically, but don't forget that there is another div here. All right, that's why we are not having it like in the center here. All right, but we are going to solve this. So inside the form, we can give it a height, let's say a height of 200 pixels. Okay, it's not working. All right, give it a background, let's say red for the form. Okay, this is our form, so we need to align items center and say justify content center. Okay, now this is aligned. Okay, and now what we can do is to give this some space. All right, so we want to give it some space, so we can say form input. Okay, and give it a margin of let's say 10 pixels. Okay, from margin top and margin bottom, and then arrow for the margin left and right. All right, okay, so here I think like we can, instead of making it center, I want it to be aligned like to the left. So let's say left, not left here, should be aligned items here. flex start. If I do it flex start. All right, so I'm having it like here, flex start. Okay, and we can use this inspector to inspect, Chrome inspector to inspect, like, okay, we are having a margin here. That's why it's a bit like it's not like aligned with the other ones. So let's say if I remove this, okay, so I can say 10 pixels and 0. Let's say 0. Yeah, so instead of 10 pixels auto here, I'll say 10 pixels and 0 to align everything. Okay, and now if you look at this one, okay, this input doesn't actually have a border, so it just have a bottom border. Okay, so I'm going to remove that border from the input using the border none, okay, and say border bottom, okay, that color. So I want to give it, I have to give it like a width 1 pixel and solid like this. Okay, and now like we are not having a border, but notice when I clicked this input, you see like there is a border, still like it's an outline. Okay, so I have to remove that outline, okay, using like the pseudo selector, which is form input and focus. So it's when it's focused that you have this outline. Okay, so I can say outline and say none. Okay, so now when I clicked, you see that there is no outline anymore, and I can use like a bigger font size, let's say 20 pixels. Okay, so I think it should be like, I can make it bigger, like 25 pixels. Okay, let's stay with the 20 pixels like this, and then I can even like increase the margin here. Okay, and now we are having our input here. Okay, let's now see our button. Let's style our button. So we can say form, okay, button, and give it a background color of, okay, this one, this reddish, not reddish, but I want the pink. Okay, this one, and remove the let's say border. I can say border, let's say none, to remove the border, and give it a font size, let's say 25 pixels. Okay, actually 20 pixels. All right, and give it 20 pixels is actually a bit bigger, let's say 15 pixels, and give it a padding. Okay, so I can say padding 10 pixels from to the top and bottom, 10 pixels, and okay, 15 pixels, let's say, and 10 pixels. So this is a shortcut, like this first value represents the padding for the top and the bottom, and this second one represents the padding for the left and right. Okay, so it adds a padding to our button. Okay, and color, let's change the color to white. Okay, I think it was white here. Okay, but the padding is actually better here, so let's inspect it. Okay, so it has a width of 150 pixels and a height of 40 pixels. Okay, and it doesn't have a padding. Okay, so there are different ways of styling your buttons. You can use paddings, or you can use like width or height, like this. Okay, so now like we have styled our button, but you still see that it is the same as this input. When I click this button, you see like there is an outline. Okay, so I want to remove this. Say from button and focus, and remove the outline. Okay, outline none, like this. All right, so now when I click, you don't see any outline. Okay, all right, now it's taking form, but we still want to stop like the form from submitting, because it's still submitting. Okay, in this case, like in this one, it is not submitting. Okay, so it's simply adding everything but not submitting. But we are going to do this with JavaScript. Okay, so now let's style this label. Okay, so we can say what we can say is form and label, like that, and then say font weight, give it a bold. All right, or you can say font size, let's say 20 pixels. Okay, and yeah, that's it. You can even like increase this container, let's say 400 pixels, because the first application, like you can, I don't have to necessarily have everything like exactly like the first one. Okay, I'm just showing you different ways of doing it. Okay, so this is just me trying to replicate the application without looking everything in detail. Okay, so now we have this input, we have this nice button. Okay, and you see that this button, whenever I hover it, you see like there is a pointer. Okay, it's no more simply a cursor, but it's a pointer. I want to have the same here. It's easy, so I can just add here cursor pointer. Okay, so that when I hover it, you see there is a pointer. All right, so that was today's video, and in the next one we are going to deal with actually creating the logic with JavaScript here when you add a form. Okay, and adding this icon and adding like this container here. All right, we are going to use JavaScript to deal with that. Okay, so try to replicate this application. Okay, or you can try to do it yourself without looking at the code, and see you on the next one where we are going to use JavaScript. All right.